Three, two, one, and go.
Hello.
A lot of our conversations moved from access to education to high quality education to all. I see that's also a conversation that has happened in India and in Brazil for sure. So very clearly now the goals are towards high quality learning for all students, and because we successfully overcome the barriers of access, right? Not completely, but so much evolution on those indicators that we can now really think about the quality of learning.
Hello and welcome to UpClose Personal Season 3 here at InvokED Studios, where we dive deep into the heart of collective action, leadership and education equity. I'm your host, Alron. Today I have the utmost pleasure of interviewing Ms. Camila Pereira, CEO of Global School Leaders. Camila, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
How are you feeling?
I'm excited to have this conversation.
You know, we have been talking and you mentioned earlier that you're from Sao Paulo, Brazil.
Yes.
If I were to, or anyone were to ever go to Brazil or Sao Paulo to be specific, they can Google all the places to visit. But if you had to mention one restaurant or any cafe or anything which is very niche, which is away from the internet, what would you recommend?
Very niched and away from the internet. I'd say try something like
No,
a cafe in the Vila Madalena area. That is certainly in the internet. But I would say it's a neighborhood that I really like there in São Paulo. Has lots of bars and different cafes, so I wouldn't recommend one specifically, but you can go to different spaces there and you certainly find your type of restaurant or cafe or anything you like.
You know, when you talk of Brazil, when you talk of India, I've never been to Brazil, but you know about India, you know about Brazil, of course. What are some, when it comes to education and the challenges and systemic challenges, what are some similarities between the two countries and what are some very distinct, characteristics?
I see many similarities actually, and I have been engaged in some conversations in the past years where we are trying to learn more from each other because of these similarities, right? So first, the large scale, right? Brazil has 220 million people and 40 million students. And we thought that was a large-scale system until we understood the Indian education system. But in any case, we are still talking about large-scale systems. Also, the federal country, and in terms of having autonomy in the level of the states and districts and municipalities, I also think that this brings us together in terms of the complexities of the systems, right? It's different than a very centralized system where everything you decide on the federal level rolls out to all the schools. And then finally, I also think that the inequalities, the social inequalities that we face in both countries, they go to the school systems. They are reflected in our school systems in a very challenging way. So how do we make sure that we include every kid and that we guarantee not only access but high quality learning for every kid is a much higher challenge when you have such inequalities in our countries. So I think those similarities should bring us even more together to try to figure out some solutions and some things that we can do to solve those problems, to address these problems.
You have a very interesting way of how you break down your answers and how you explain each aspect of it. Is it because I know you're trained in journalism? Is it where it comes from? Because something I've been curious about. One is, do you miss your journalistic days? Number two is, do you see your learnings and your teachings from journalism being carried over into your work as the CEO of Global School Leaders?
That's a very interesting question. I don't miss my days as a journalist. I think that when you choose a career at a very young age, you don't know exactly what the daily routine is going to look like, right? And I started at the newsroom. I worked for 5 years in a magazine in Brazil, writing about politics and then about education. But the life and the culture in the newsroom was not for me. It was not a good match, not a good fit, you know. And I quickly realized that. But I feel that what drove me to journalism was my curiosity. This has been a value for me my whole life. Really curious about seeing the world, learning, listening to people. I love interacting one-on-one with people and learning more about their trajectory. What you're doing with me, I love doing with others. So that I have kept in my life, and I was able to bring with me to this new career that I've created for myself in the social impact world. And of course, the things you are trained on and the things you learn at journalism school, I think they are useful for me today. So I think there is a capacity to see the big picture, to see the big scenario and connect dots that not necessarily everyone is seeing, that I think that is very helpful for me. I also think that the interest in others and the curiosity is super helpful for a CEO. I keep asking questions in my role all the time, and that has helped me so far. So I do think that some of that is still with me, and it's something that I carry.
So two things to double click on. Number one, yes, I understand that because I enjoy doing this. I enjoy talking to people, listening to stories, capturing them from a very young age.
Yeah.
I thought of going to journalism school, but I realized one, the sector is, in India at least, is very, very high intensive. Like any sector in India is very high intensive, but a journalistic setup, like you have to have very, very thick skin to survive in it. And you have to go through a lot until you are in a newsroom and you're interviewing folks. So that at some point took me back. I was like, okay, maybe I don't want to do that. So this is my medium of doing it. Number two, you talked about the driving factor from a young child, as a young age, you have had interest in journalism. Now that you're working in education, what was the driving factor moving from journalism and specifically to education? I know you started writing and talking about education while you're doing politics, but why education specifically? Why not health or wash or anything? So why education?
Yeah. So basically, when I moved from politics to education, I started writing stories more about education. I started interacting with schools a lot, so visiting schools, talking to principals, talking to teachers, talking to students. I started talking to ministers of education, secretaries of education, understanding more the challenges of policy design and policy implementation in education. And somehow I just felt like, it felt like such a relevant thing in our society, right? Today I feel like I'm sure schools are the most important institutions in our society and in our world. And then it was very clear to me, more on a gut feeling, I guess, at that point, that this was super relevant and that I should be not only writing about that, but really channeling my energy to try to transform that as well. So that was what really, in my mind, I think drove me to move from journalism to education specifically. Having said that, my grandmother was a teacher, a school leader, and worked for many years training teachers her whole life. Like, she dedicated her career to that. I helped her write a very independent family book to register her story that is called Memoirs of a Teacher, right? So it's really something that is ingrained in the family. And then my mom also opened a school and was the school principal and was a teacher there. So I think that we forget about this past and then we rationalize how we got somewhere. But I actually think that there is so much in there. I started going to school in Brazil when I was 6 months old, not because it was normal for kids 40 years ago to go to school at this age in Brazil, but because my mom was there, right? So it was the place where my mom was. So I think I've always developed this passion for the school and for the school as a place where I want to be, that remains with me, and that I think somewhere is part of the decisions I've made to come to the education field.
Sorry, did you say Memoirs of a Teacher is a published book? Is there something?
No, it's an independent book. Like she wrote, and I help as a journalist granddaughter. I helped her write it.
Okay.
But it's just like we printed a few copies for the family to register her story. But it's not a published book.
I was hoping our viewers could find it online.
Yeah, and not especially not in English.
No, that's fair.
Yeah.
No, but also the point. I mean, my father used to be a teacher, and for the longest time I grew up seeing him teach literature, social studies, and everything. And then when I told him that I'm joining Education Institute, he's like, okay, these are a list of problems, solve them by the time you're done there. I was like, it's going to take much longer. But he sees the work we are doing and he keeps track of the work we do. We are here at InvokED, we're talking about our work and everything, but you're also talking about collaboration and collective action. These are terms that we have been saying, not just over the 2 days, but over the last few years and everything.
Yeah.
Why is collective action now more important than ever?
I think the dimension, the magnitude of the problems we are trying to solve at scale, this is so huge. It's so clear that no single organization or no single person can solve it alone, right? So I think this is one dimension of it. I think we need to join efforts and also really join efforts to try to solve these problems, because they are huge and we need everyone to work towards solving them. But the other thing I think is diverse perspectives to solve the problem, right? So if one single organization or one single sector is trying to address education problems or build more opportunities for kids, this sector or this organization will be doing this from a very unique perspective, right? Which is their position in the world. So if it's government, if it's NGO, if it's a startup on the EdTech world, if it's a family foundation, all these carry the biases of these people and these groups and these organizations. And as a collective challenge that we have, that education is, as a collective thing that we have to think about, we can't have just one perspective at the table. We need to have more and more diverse voices, including more and more the educators and the students, because also many times they are not part of this conversation. So at Global School Leaders, for example, we are really trying to make sure that school principals are part of the conversation of how we are going to tackle some of the most pressing issues that we have in education. So I think these two dimensions, at least for me, are the answer to your question on why collective action now. It's too big, the problems are too big, so we need more people, and diverse perspectives will make a huge difference in how we are able to really address the challenge that we have.
Do you think collective action as a discipline or as an action will evolve over time? Like in my head, right now we're talking about having all the different perspectives, and I'm thinking over the next 5 years, it will be the same way itself, or am I wrong? Well, do you think as a discipline, collective action will evolve?
I hope so. I think we are already evolving in how to do things collaboratively. There is a way of doing it that is, I think, dividing the tasks, like the projects, the things that is more tactical.
Right.
Which works, which is already good. You are already collaborating, but at a very tactical level.
Right.
And then I think there is what some of us have experienced. I see here in India in the work that Shiksha Lokan is doing. I've seen that in Brazil in the work that we were doing in my previous life at a family foundation that I used to work with, that is really creating a shared vision and a shared purpose, a shared goal, and mobilizing different stakeholders and different organizations to work towards that vision and enabling that
Okay, yeah,
ecosystem
makes
to
sense.
work towards that vision. So I think that the difference here is just tactics or strategy, tactics or inspiration.
Right, yeah.
So I think that this is already an evolution of just, okay, each of us will do this, you do that, and we complement each other. That is good, but I think that's another level. The challenge with this is that it demands building trust.
Right.
Right? So I think that will evolve a lot in collective action when we move from a more transactional way of doing collective action and a very tactical way where we adjust and we build trust to work together. As I say that out loud, I'm also thinking like it's such a challenging moment for collective action because we are losing trust in our societies, right? We are, as individuals in this polarized political world, we are more and more finding divisions and bubbles than finding commonalities, I think. So I think for all of us that believe in collective action and that believe in working together to solve big problems, we need to think, how do we rebuild trust and how do we keep building trust? Because without that, you can't move to this level of collective action.
Right. We've been talking about the future and we're talking about present. There's this trend happening on social media right now where people are posting their photos from 2016 in a more reminiscent way, because in a way talking about that was the last time before the boom of social media, we were truly happy on social media, right? So the photos are more reminiscent, more soulful than what we have now. Taking that theme as in mind, how has the last decade been for you in terms of personally, your growth? What major difference do you see between 2016 and Camila of 2026?
Yeah, wow, that is big. So I have changed a lot, I think, in this past decade. It was a big shift for me personally. So first, I think many things happened at the same time. I became a mother.
Oh, congratulations.
That shifts my perspective of life completely, and also my perspective of myself. I can tell you more about this. Then COVID happened to all of us, right? So, but that was very close for me because my son was born April 2020. So it was exactly when the pandemic hit. Lockdown had just started. So for me, these two things, I say I don't have like a perspective of what has changed because I became a mother and what has changed because COVID happened, right? And I turned 40, almost all at the same time. So all of these things in my life, I think, created this moment, which was very transformational for me, as you can imagine, right? So I think every decade, if you look back, you will see a very different version of yourself. But this one, especially for me, I would say was the one that, in terms of world perspective, work perspective, personal, it changed a lot for me internally.
And this also on that 2016 versus 2026, do you also see a difference in how we are working towards education? Do you see that difference as well? I mean, we are primarily at global school leaders, how you've been working towards education. Has it changed over the last decade?
I think it has changed. I think it has changed a lot. I think a lot of our conversations moved from access to education to high quality education to all. I see that's also a conversation that has happened in India and in Brazil for sure. So very clearly now the goals are towards high quality learning for all students, and because we successfully overcome the barriers of access, right? Not completely, but so much evolution on those indicators that we can now really think about the quality of learning. So this is one, for sure, big shift. But I also think that, especially in Brazil, and this is something that I see that is not the rest of the world doesn't see as much what's happening in Brazil. And I think there are many language barriers to that, but also geopolitical questions that lead to that. But there is a coalition, this movement that I see in India, it's happening in Brazil as well, right? The coordination among civil society, schools, governments, entrepreneurs, different stakeholders in the system with a shared vision and a shared agenda. And I think the nonprofit world in Brazil contributed a lot to that, building trust with the government to really be this field, this sector that enables government, builds the capacity on government so that they can solve the problems, right? With the legitimacy of the votes that they have received and all of that. So, and the capacity that is there. So I think these two things changed a lot in Brazil, at least in my context in Brazil in the past decade. And I've just stepped into this global space of education recently. It's been a year and a few months, right? And I see that in India you have that, but it's not so common in so many countries to have this coalition, the society mobilized towards education. And I think it makes a huge difference, because otherwise you have like, the government is always thinking about this, and they are the ones who are always there. But then civil society comes and go, and very random projects and pulverized projects, project-based solutions, and this doesn't really help. Sometimes it distracts governments, right? So sometimes it's a lot for them to deal with. And I think that if more countries are able to create these coalitions and these movements around education that is more coordinated, and have this perspective of we will enable our systems, our governments to make the change that we want to see, I think more and more we will see more countries in the global south achieving the goal that we have of high quality learning for all kids.
You know, the beauty of your answer is I see the same sort of sentiments and emotions coming from people from United States or people from Lebanon who are here, and I see that we're all on the same thinking spectrum of how we need to move from access and move to quality education, how we need to do this at a very systemic level where everyone needs to come together. And I see that resonating in Brazil as well. Yeah.
Well, and not to mention technology, right? I mean that in the past decade, that was a huge shift when we think about the work that we do in education. Now with AI, we are all questioning, wondering, working on what is it gonna be, right? How is this gonna impact the field in the next few years? And I'm sure the transformation will be huge. It has already been with ed tech in the past 10 years, but I think that AI is a different level of transformation that we are going to see.
Yeah, it's exciting. Generally, I do not know what holds for us, but it's very exciting to see how AI will particularly impact education. You know, before I get to my final two questions, I have this red flag and green flag over here. Okay. So what I would request you to do is just pick any one flag, and I'll tell you what the flags indicate. If you pick up a green flag, I'm going to ask you a very straightforward, positive question about education or something else. But if you pick up a red flag, I'm going to ask you a slightly more complicated question on education itself. But it'll be just one chance. So which one do you pick up?
I don't know. I think the red, because I like the provocative questions.
What is something in education that we're still not talking about over the next 5 or 10 years? What is something that you're saying this will be the biggest challenge, and there's a silent crisis that we're still not talking about?
I don't know if we're not talking about. We are not talking enough about it. And for me, it is the biases that we carry as individuals and how this appears in the classroom and in the expectations we put on students. So I'm specifically talking about, for example, in Brazil, racism, right? Structural racism in Brazil has been pervasive and has been there historically. how does that impact our classrooms and the expectations that teachers and school principals and all of us as adults and as a society have towards Black students learning? And I would assume that in India, that would be similar when we think about castes, right?
Yeah.
So how do we, and gender is another big issue when we think about many countries around the world. What are the expectations towards what girls can do when it comes to education and how successful they can be in our education systems? So I think that is very challenging because that's not something that you can solve on a tactical level at the education system. That is not a problem only of educators and teachers and school principals. The students bring it with them to school. Parents bring it with them to the school community. As a society, we are all putting our biases out there all the time. And then it becomes what we call, how does it translate? It's a self-fulfilled prophecy. Does it make sense?
Yeah, it does, yeah.
Because it's like if you don't believe that a kid can learn, because any of those reasons, because he's Black, she's Black, because she's she, so it's a girl, or because of caste, then how do you expect that kid to believe in herself and to be able to learn at school? And I think that affects many kids around the world in the school setting, and because it changes so much from one context to the other that it's also hard to address. And it's kind of a taboo, you know. We've started talking a lot about that in Brazil more recently, which is great.
Oh, okay.
But it's hard. It's hard to promote those debates at the school level, at the education system level, but it's super important, right? At Global School Leaders, we are championing the gender agenda also for gender equitable schools. I think we need to talk more about this and try to find non-obvious solutions, right? Because they are not technical solutions. They are solutions that go to a place of healing, rebuilding trust among groups that don't have trust anymore, trauma. So all of this is complex.
It's interesting that there's something that's only been in recent conversations in Brazil, because in India it's been a conversation that's been there for quite a while. In fact, something you already know, but something for our viewers as well. You know, we have the Shiksha Chaupals in Bihar and the Shikshana Chaudis in Karnataka, and they are these group of women federations. Their only job is to go to villages, be as decentralized as possible, go to each and every household, get the women together and start talking about, one, why is a girl not going to school? And second, why are you getting them married off so early? And of course, one of our Shikshagra awardees from this year has also been a woman who's been going to rural parts of her state, of her region, and talking about menstrual hygiene and how this needs to start be in open conversations. And I'm glad to see that being resonated in your answer as well, because the fact that that's already happening with this Women Federation who are going and talking about these issues, we have been able to send back girls into school.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to see that.
Yeah. Your comment is great because it helps me to clarify what I've said, because it's not that the conversation has started in Brazil recently. The Black movements have been advocating for this and building awareness around this and creating momentum for this for many decades now.
Okay, yeah.
What I'm saying is that recently I think the institutions in power, the government, the non-profit organizations, we started talking about this more, right? So the white people, right? So I think it's unfair to say it's recent because they've been shouting about this for a long time and also doing a lot of progress on the agenda. But what I think that is positive now is that there is more institutional dialogue about this.
No, I get that, and thank you so much for clarification. I did get from your initial answer that it's more from the systemic lens and not from the movements, because movements have been there in India also from quite a long time, and it's when the system starts taking ownership when we start seeing actual changes. Before I get to my last question, I know I've been doing a lot of long questions. You've been being patient enough with your answers. I was thinking we can do a quick rapid fire questions. Okay,
We'll
so either or questions.
Okay.
So then I'm just very curious to see what your responses would be. Camila, would you rather teach in a school or a college?
School.
Would you rather work on policy or on the ground?
Policy.
Would you rather lead a small team or a large organization?
Small team.
Would you rather have funding security or creative freedom?
Creative freedom.
Oh, that's cool.
I don't know.
No,
Now that I said that, yeah, I also need secured funding.
no, makes sense. But I'm glad that your heart went to creative freedom.
The heart went there, but then the mind immediately
reality
got
brings you
back
down.
and said, "Oh no, you need the funding."
No, the reality does bring you down. As a fundraising person, I understand that.
Oh God, yeah, it's so hard.
Would you rather change one system deeply or many systems slightly?
Many systems lightly.
Really? I'm very curious. Can you double click? Why?
I think my heart and my mind are more on this generalist approach and global approach, right? So I think there is value in creating. I think it's the change is cyclical.
Right.
So I think there is value in creating the starting point
Okay.
for
fair.
change
That's
to
a very fair
happen.
point. Yeah.
Right. So I like that when you start something, and then I think the deep transformation will happen. But there is and then I think that if you are able to, it's contagious
Right.
also, right? So if changes start happening at scale, even if slightly, in different countries, in different parts of one country,
Right.
then it continues.
That's a very interesting perspective. Yeah.
So there is a ripple effect there, right? A momentum
Wheels are in motion. Yeah.
there. Yeah. So I think I like to put this in motion more than making sure that one full cycle is complete. Also because I don't think there is an end to the cycle. So I think it's kind of, because it's a cycle, it's endless. So
that's a very fair answer. I didn't think of it that way. My final question on the rapid fire. Would you rather work behind the scenes or in public facing roles?
behind the scenes, although I'm the CEO now.
I get it.
It is super more my personality to be the behind the scenes person.
No,
Yeah.
understandable. For my final question, we've been talking a lot about problem statement, solution, the past and the future. I'm going to put us in a fantasy world. If a genie from a lamp comes to you, says that they will grant you 3 wishes of your choice, and the 3 wishes will lead to education equity in Brazil and in the world, what will those 3 wishes be? And of course, you can't wish for more wishes or more money or anything obvious like that. But what will your 3 wishes be?
I can't wish for what?
More funding or for more
Okay.
wishes?
For more wishes. I love that. I don't know. I'm not very creative for those questions. But I think if this would lead in the end to education opportunities for all kids, does it matter what their wishes are? Like,
At least one, if you like. Because you know the problem statements. We've been talking about it in terms
Yeah.
of leadership or in terms of the biases and everything. So
Yeah.
on those aspects, I was thinking, like, would those be your wishes on those aspects?
so I think I would go to the pleasure in learning and teaching.
Oh, that's interesting.
So I really think that if we have adults in the school level that are happy doing the work that they are doing, and kids that are happy learning at school, we have much more chances of having this efforts that we're doing in a sustained way, right? So this for me is really key, that everything that we are doing at the school level doesn't become a burden, something that, because people are also here to be happy, right?
Yeah.
So how do we make sure that all the reforms, all the things, all the rigor, all the things that we want for schools also come with this underlying thing that that shouldn't be underestimated, in my opinion, because I feel like it's easy for us to get on the sense of urgency and everything. So if there is a gene, and that would be the thing that I would ask for, that we can get to all the rigor and the excellence that we aim for without losing the pleasure, that sentiment that is so, because learning and teaching, this is such a gift, like it's such a beautiful experience. I've been witnessing my son learning so many things in this world, and it's just beautiful. It's just pleasant, So if we can somehow make all the reforms that we need to do and all the urgency and all that with the rigor and the high bar, but keeping that sense of wonder, because it's wonderful. I think that would be my wish.
No, that's fair. I mean, I really enjoy my work at Shiksha Gram Mantra, because when I joined the education sector, I come from banking, then I was a researcher for 3 years, was just traveling India, and then I joined education. I came with my own set of biases, like any individual. And it's been beautiful to see my exposure at the ground level, tarnishing those biases one by one. And the beauty of what I really like, what I do is going to feel, just to see that a parent or a teacher saying that they enjoy teaching more now versus when it was 2-3 years earlier. It was more rote teaching or more rote learning, but now it's more interactive, whether it be in STEM or whether it be in FLN, whatever, it's more interactive. And even a child saying that they enjoy learning now, they enjoy being more vocal now, people listen to them. To see those skills that you need for 21st century and those kind of knowledge you need in terms of subject, all growing in them, and little by little I can see that what we do matters, and I can see it as an end result that hopefully someday that this will be at a system level as well.
Yeah.
But Camila, on that note, you've been very patient with me. You've been very patient for the interview. Thank you so much for your time. It's genuinely an honor to be speaking with you. I know I've been speaking with you the last 2-3 days. You're very insightful, and I'm very excited to see what the future holds for you, global school leaders, and your son. Okay, I hope you're able to create a world for him where he has the pleasure of learning and teaching, hopefully someday, and is able to, live in a better educational future. On that note, thank you for our audience for tuning in. Stay connected, keep the dialogue going, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you. This was fantastic.
Thank you.
It's fantastic.